Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we've got a new project to start. We've got a Tamiya frog. I know I'm like a dog spotting squirrels and I really should finish other projects first, but I've been hankering after a new Tamiya kit build for a while, and this seemed like a good time. The frog is an all-independent suspension buggy from 1983. It's a very different beast to a modern buggy. The rear suspension is trailing arm. The front suspension has its springs buried in the chassis. It's all a bit weird, but that's why we like Tamiya. They're still selling the kits with all sorts of quirky designs that you don't see anywhere else. This kit, of course, is the re-release from 2005, which has a few minor updates. Nothing major, just things to make it more reliable and better suited to modern electronics. The essence of frog is still there. Inside the box we have a typical Tamiya layout. It's not a fancy kit with the blister packs on show, but it's still nicer than having all the bits jumbled together in bags like you get with most kits. We've got all your standard plastic bits and tyres on the left. On the right we've got the Tamiya ESC, which is so much better than the old mechanical speed control. Under that is the body shell, and in the middle is the box with all the small parts in. So next I'm going to reposition the camera so we can have a quick look at everything you get in the box. It's not going to be a super close look. I like to think of it more as a way to show just what you get for your money. Right, first out is the black parts tree with the trailing arms and the centre of the gearbox. There's also the drive flanges, since 12mm hexes weren't really a thing yet when the original kit came out. Next we have the wheels, which are proper beadlocks. These ones are a bit of a pain to put together though, but they do look nice when they're done. These are all white nylon parts. There's some bearing carriers on one of the trees, and the other one has all the servo saver parts. Something missing from modern buggies, we have a driver. It's only the shoulders up, but it's still very nice to have. Here are the tyres. Now the front tyres are like aircraft tyres and very hard. The rear ones though are surprisingly soft, but those spikes aren't going to last very long at all. There's not too much to say about the body shell, except it does have an overspray film, which of course the original one didn't have. And now for the maroon box. Inside we find all the small bags with all the screws and bits. First out is a large bag containing the chassis halves. Now compared to the modern 1/10 buggies, it's a really very chunky design. They've not really gone for full-on weight reduction. This bag has some metal parts, the gearbox covers, front suspension parts, and a rather nice front skid that looks kind of like an oil pan. This tree has the front suspension arms along with the front bumper mount, all good chunky plastic. For the motor, Tamiya provide a good old 27-turn silver can. I think I'm going to be swapping out for something with just a little bit more oomph. Not a vast amount more though, as the gearbox isn't the best with lots of power. Here's the screws bag, and there's 4 of them. For the most part, there's nothing all that special in here. It's just lots of the typical self-tappers, M3s, nuts, and some shoulder screws. This metal parts bag has the axles in, along with 3 different pinions, as the gearbox can be built with 3 different gear ratios. Not quite as useful as an adjustable motor mount, but quite neat nonetheless. These are the rear oil dampers, a different design to the original ones, but hopefully that's going to mean they're not going to be quite so leaky. The accessory bag has more going on than most kits. We've got some gaiters for the drive shafts, 2 types of grease, heat shield tape, as well as the usual little bag of tools. Another metal parts bag, this time with all the small bits. We've got some chassis spacers, gearbox spacers, and the 2 small front suspension springs. This tree has all the extra bits for the dampers. I think we're only going to be using a few of the parts though, as most of the bits on the tree are for the more typical types of damper. Here's the gearbox gears, there's the main diff gear, and 3 different sizes of spur gear. All the usual good chunky Tamiya stuff. The front bumper comes on its own as it's made from a flexible plastic. It should absorb lots of hits, even if it doesn't look too brilliant. This is the antenna mount. It's steel, so wrapping a 27 meg antenna around it wouldn't be a great idea. It's also going to bend or break something with enough rollovers. Still, it'll make a good flagpole. For the paperwork, we've got the usual warning sheet. It's all largely common sense. Nice that they include it though. The decal sheet is one of the bigger changes over the original kit. For instance, the big red Tamiya racing decal used to be an NGK sponsor, same with the other ones. I'm guessing they didn't want to renew the licenses. And then we have the manual, which is a fully modern Tamiya build manual, all nicely laid out and clear, but you wouldn't expect anything less from Tamiya. And there we go, that's what you get in the box, plus the ESC, which I missed and left it in the box. It's not the most complex kit, but I think for 150 quid it's not too bad at all. It should be a fun build. Here is the ESC, which is one of the recent censored brushless ones. A nice ESC that does brush too. We might save it for another project though, and use a more basic ESC in the build. It always seems a shame using a brushless ESC in such a basic setup. It's also worth mentioning that older versions of the re-release kit used an older ESC that's nowhere near as good. They should all have been sold a long time ago, but it might be worth asking to be sure that you get the nice TBLE02S ESC. To get the buggy running, we will of course need a few other bits and bobs. If you're going to be buying from a model shop and getting a starter pack, you'll more often than not be set and ready to go, but we're going to go custom. First then, we need a steering servo. So we've got an e-tronics ET2047. It's not all that powerful, although it is a little bit faster than most. The important factors were it's got metal gears and it was cheap. Literally any standard servo will do the job, even with plastic gears, as long as you stick with the servo saver in the kit. If you want to go with a posh brand, a Futaba S3003 will be perfectly good. Next we've got the transmitter. Now I'm going to be using a FlySky GT3C as I've got a small stash of them, but any transmitter with 2 channels or more will be fine. You'll also need a receiver, but usually you get one with a transmitter, so that's easy. Endpoint adjustment or dual rates on the steering would be nice to have, but not really a deal breaker. For power, we need a battery. Now the chassis is really meant for a 6L NiCad or NiMi, which are of course still available and usually included with the starter packs. NiMis are a bit safer than a modern LiPo. You don't really have to worry all that much about storage, charging and over discharging. If you've not used LiPos before and you don't have hands-on help, NiMi packs might be a good idea. Something that a lot of starter packs miss, you're gonna need some paint. It needs to be a special paint for painting Lexan shells. Now Tamiya do a large range, but I tend to use Core RC paint. I've had good results and so far 0 flaking. It's up to you what colour you want to use. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want. Some nice masking tape for the windows would probably be a good idea too. Another thing most starter packs leave out, bearings. The kit comes with a few, but only enough for the gearbox. The wheel bearings are all plain bearings. They do work, but they will wear the shaft that they run on. For a few quid, you can get the extras needed to make the buggy last longer and run smoother. I still do wonder why Tamiya use plain bearings in most of their kits, when more or less every other manufacturer uses proper bearings throughout. So here we go, that little lot is going to become a Tamiya frog. If you're really careful and do some eBay thrifting for the radio gear, you can get a frog up and running for about 200 quid. From a model shop it's going to be a little bit more, but probably not by that much. As with all Tamiya kits, I'm expecting a nice smooth build, other than the wheels, which are known to be a bit of a faff on the old kits. Everything should go together with no fuss. If you've got yourself a lockdown project on the go, you can show it off to the community on the Discord server. You can share pictures and video, as well as chat about your builds, and of course see what everyone else is up to. So that's about it for this week then. I really should get on with the WPL C44KM next week. It's so close to being a rolling chassis ready to fit the electronics, but I just keep getting distracted. If we don't do more of the WPL, we will probably be starting on the Frog. Either way, it's going to be a build video. As always then, thanks for watching. Like if you liked, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment if there's something on your mind. Bye guys!